Hey everyone, Brandon and Kyle back again in the Kabuki Strength Lab, and today we're going to be talking about common sumo deadlift lockout problems and how you can fix it. We're going to be talking about 3 problems that we see the most commonly and what some things you can do to fix them. So the first one that we're going to talk about is squatting to the bar. Now squatting to the bar is a very common way for people who are new to sumo deadlifting, or for people who want to get their hips as close to the bar as possible, are going to do. It looks like this. They're going to be in a very low position, and it's going to feel like an okay starting position, but the problem with this is that we don't have a ton of tension built up in our hips, and there's not a ton of tension built up in our legs. So a couple things are going to happen from this position. One, he's either going to counterbalance up, hips are going to shoot up, or he's going to get caught right here at lockout. And now that unhinged position is going to be very, very common because he doesnn't have really any room to go once he gets to about here, and that's a very disadvantaged leverage position for Kyle to finish the pull in. Sometimes to finish pulls like that, people are going to end up really leaning back into it, and they're still going to finish unhinged. That's going to be fault number 1. Now the way that we fix that is by wedging into the bar more effectively and actually hinging to the bar, not just squatting to the bar. So when you're getting into position, we don't need to be just squatting down, but we should be actively hinging into the bar. When Kyle pushes his hips into the bar, he's not just getting closer to the bar, he's actually generating tension in his quads and up through his back simultaneously. And that's going to prevent him from squatting to the bar, because now his hips are going to be at a very leveraged position to begin and to finish the lift. So even though this is a lockout problem, it's really a starting position problem. Now the second one that we see most commonly is windmilling in the deadlift. And windmilling is usually when one side starts to travel out and the other side kind of follows it as such. You want to show that, Kyle? Yep. And it looks kind of like that. That's kind of an exaggeration, but it usually leads to poor lockouts or to very uneven lockouts, maybe some hip pain. Now that's going to be caused from probably one of 2 things. The first of which is poor supination in your underhand. If you cannot go and supinate your arm fully just by standing, this is probably something you have to work on. If you find that your hand only goes to about here, then you need to work on your supination of your underarm to be able to hold position well and to avoid that. Now, another fault is going to be a lack of internal hip rotation. Kyle, get on the ground for me on your back. I'm going to show you a very quick, easy way to tell if this is a problem. Straighten your legs for me, Kyle. Now in this position, we need Kyle's back to be fairly flat on the ground. He doesn't have to posteriorly tilt his hips or anything excessive, but we're going to take one leg up, bend it. Now I'm going to ask Kyle to internally rotate his leg. Now you can do this with somebody, or you can probably do it yourself. Internally rotate your leg as hard as you can. Good. Down, other one. Now what we're looking for are differences. Now it looks like Kyle doesn't have a ton of internal rotation here. He doesn't need a lot, but we need to make sure that the amount he has is proportional on both legs. So if you're missing internal rotation on one side, say this leg can get all the way in here and the other leg is only about to this degree, that's a major problem. That's going to be where you spend the majority of your time, and there's a ton of things you can do to improve that. One of our favorites is going to be the shin box get up. Run through 2 reps of that really quick, Kyle. We have a full video on the shin box get up on our video library on kabukistrength.com, but this is very quick. We're working internal rotation on the right leg, and it's a very easy way to improve that positioning. Another one is to do the 90-90 transition drill. Run through that really quick, Kyle. 90-90 transition is another one that you don't have to do that active or passive, depending on how you do it. Internal rotation drill that we just showed you on Kyle's back, you can run through this. And if you feel like one hip is restricted, that's the hip that's likely missing internal rotation, and that's the hip that you need to focus on. Now the final fault that we're going to see in the deadlift is starting with a compromised spinal position. And that means like usually lumbar flexion. Thoracic flexion is not a great thing for most people in the deadlift for a few reasons. However, we're really concerned about this portion of Kyle's spine not rounding. It's very common for people to round their spine in a sumo deadlift because they try and get their hips really close in and wedge to the bar. Wedge into the bar, Kyle, and roll your hips under you. But as they roll into the bar, they're wedging in, but they're actually tucking into the bar. And this is going to be a very poor position for Kyle to pull from. He might generate a lot of speed from the ground, and one of the most common things people are going to tell us as coaches is that, hey, I'm really powerful off the ground, but I get stuck at lockout. And generally, that's not really true. They're just in a bad starting position at the beginning. So in order to improve that, we need to be a little bit more diligent with our spinal mechanics as he hinges to the bar. And he's not going to allow himself to get into a rounded position at all, and that's a key. A lot of times people just bend down to the bar and then they try to figure it out once they're at the bar, but we want to be intentional with our spinal mechanics as he's hinging down to the bar. And then from here, it's all about creating tension in all the right places. As Kyle pulls himself tall, he's pulling himself with his, or really pressing the bar away with his legs and trying to find a very tall spinal position that isn't a squatted position. It's not a rounded position, and it's one that has proportionally equal hip mobility positions. Anything to add, Kyle?
A lot of people chase lockout issues on the deadlift, whether it's conventional or sumo, by looking at just their lockout. When we coach, a lot of the faults that we see are either in the setup or off the floor. So here's 3 easy fixes for you today to help address some of those issues. Hopefully they help.
Brandon, Kyle out.